Let's record. Let's begin. Happy days. Participants are arriving in the webinar. It's very exciting. It never gets old. Hello. Welcome. Welcome. Come on in. Come on in. Hello.
It's strange to see that, like, the participants coming in, but like no one's popping up on my Zoom. Like, I'm just like, someone having video problems. No, it's a webinar. It's
a webinar because we're professors, we're academics, we're professors of improv.
Oh, we can see everyone in the thing.
You
Can we
can.
give shout outs and stuff, or does that blow up people's spots?
No, give shout outs. Go for it.
Oh, we got Beck Melrose in the audience tonight. That's a good get. Raw Comedy Award winner. That's a big deal.
Hello, Cindy. Hello, Anna. Hello, Albert. So many great people. So nice.
At least one of the Rascopoluses.
We must always have at least one Scotland.
Yeah.
Oh, it's so nice to see you all. Thanks for joining us, everybody. This is very exciting. Welcome to Rant Academy. Beck, we love you. Thank you for saying that you love us at the panel. That's just beautiful. Oh, Marcel, do you see this?
Yeah, I reckon I can give I've got 3 more shout outs for the rest of this, so people better be wary about asking for shout outs. But big shout out to Claire Kavanagh, and make sure you check out her film when it becomes available. When I say film, it might be a web series, but it's still content, and I'm more than content with that.
Marcel, I would like to hire you as my publicist effectively. That was beautiful.
You can be the hype man.
Yeah. Hello, everybody. Welcome. Thank you for joining us for Rant Academy this beautiful Thursday. I hope you are well and safe wherever you are, and hopefully lockdown is not giving you too much of the blues. We will cheer you up and make you think for the next hour with some premium improv content. But before we get any further, I'd just like to take a moment, as always, to acknowledge that I'm speaking to you from unceded Gadigal land, and I would like to pay my respects to the Gadigal people of the Eora Nation and extend that respect to elders past and present. This always was and always will be Aboriginal land, and we're very lucky to be on it and to be sharing stories and ideas on it tonight. So thank you for joining us. I'm really excited about this edition of Rant Academy. First of all, it's faculty represent. We love that. Welcome, you 3. We've got Elle, we've got Marcel, we've got Steve, wonderful improvisers, wonderful people, and a real delicious pick and mix of topics tonight. We've got some character stuff. We've got great don't get in your head, creative, broader stuff. And we've got Steve, who's going to kick us off tonight with some delicious thoughts about group games. Hayden in the chat has just said it's a big night for moustaches, 50-50, that's representation.
Yeah, Steve's is way better groomed.
I like the handlebar. I'm kind of hot 50-50 on handlebar.
I got a bail on this moustache.
Okay, and also, this is interesting. I just got a pop-up notification on the Zoom because another It's faculty member is signed into this account. So if I get booted out of my own event shortly, that will be interesting.
It's got to be Kale. It's got to be Kale, surely.
Faculty, if you're watching this, we've been through this. It's my time. Well, we haven't been kicked out yet, so we'll just keep going. But if I disappear, remember me, whisper my name, and we'll see what's happening. Thank you, Claire. Okay. I'm too scared to press any buttons now. Anyway, let's get into it. Before I get kicked out of this, I'll introduce Steve and then you can kick us off. It's going to be great. As always, you've got the question and answer function down there, everybody. Chuck in your questions. There have been so many interesting conversations the last few weeks. They've been really hearty, thought-provoking stuff. So don't be shy. Chuck in your questions anytime. And of course, use the chat. Sound off. Tell us what you're thinking and feeling. All right. First up, the wonderful mustachioed Steve Kimmens is going to begin tonight. Steve has been improvising for over 18 years in the UK, the US, New Zealand, and Australia. He was one of the founding members of the Oxford Imps in 2003 and has performed and directed improv shows at the Edinburgh Fringe Festival, the Sydney Fringe Festival, Sydney Comedy Festival, Melbourne Fringe, Adelaide Comedy Festival. Whew. He was a finalist in the Cranston Cups in 2011 and 2012. He performed in Full Body Contact, No Love Tennis, RIP. That was such a good show. He's performed in 3 Improv Melbourne 52-hour soap operas, and he was part of the cast for It's A Streetcar Named Hot Tin Menagerie in 2018 and 19. Also a brilliant show. Steve is trained at Improv Olympic in Chicago under some of the most amazing teachers around the world. And outside of improv, Steve is a corporate facilitator and organizational change management consultant, which sounds so impressive, even though I don't fully understand what it means. But he applies the principles of improv to the corporate world, which is so cool and interesting. And the idea is like to help build teams and build cool, inclusive environments and overcome challenges in the workplace, which sounds amazing to me. Tonight, Steve is going to rant about why group games are the pinnacle of improv. Steve, it's all yours.
Boom. Thanks, Bridie. Yes, and the thing with organizational change managers is most organizational change managers don't know what they're doing, and nor do the organizations who hire them. So there's no worry with any ignorance there at all. And I'm going to take inspiration from Bridie's rant last week, and I'm going to fucking bring it and bring it all the way through. So the case I'm going to make is why group games are the pinnacle of improvisation. Now you might be sitting there thinking, well, I don't understand, Steve. How could they possibly be the pinnacle? Well, the reason for me that they're the pinnacle is the greatest gift of improvisation is that it is a group activity. Okay, it's not a solo activity. It's not something that you have complete control over, that you know exactly what you need to do and how it will work for you. No. Improvisation is this group activity which is messy and anything could kind of happen. But because of that, you can create something that's better or greater than yourself. Now, in improv, and I'd say in long form, what's the kind of the most the greatest way that you can do something as a group? It's the group game or openings in Harold's that you might see as well. That to me, that's the absolute pinnacle of what improv can be. Now, and to me, one of the reasons why I think that's really important is because it's true collaboration. Now, Bridie was saying beforehand about corporate stuff. You know, in corporate land, collaboration is bullshit. It's one of these bullshit, irrelevant corporate values that mean fuck all. Okay, like no one gives a shit about your ideas, and basically most corporate values are used to blame people with. They're not truly about let's actively collaborate. Whereas with improv, it really is. Like you're going to be in a show with someone, going to be in a group, and you're going to create something. You're going to create something bigger than yourself, and then it's going to disappear, and it will never have existed. You'll have had that one opportunity, that one shot. And that's why group games to me are the absolute pinnacle. You know, to me, well, I suppose one question you might be sitting there going, well, I don't really understand what a group game is, Steve. So if you do Harold, you probably will have come across group games. And effectively, what is a group game? The idea is that it's everyone on stage together at the same time creating something. So people may come on at different times, but you're looking to explore or work through different concepts or ideas. And the way that you can do this is really varied. So you can go from one end of the spectrum, which is maybe something like if you're familiar with short form games, something like a World's Worst. So it's very verbal. You know, it might have a line of people saying something and you've created a pattern. The other extreme is something like an interpretive dance with some weird noises thrown in and possibly some uncomfortable looks. But it can be completely two separate extremes, like stuff that you wouldn't really expect to see in an improv show. So you can really see like a really wide variety of things in a group game. And there isn't really a rule to say this is what a group game is and this is what it isn't. You don't have to have everyone, but the preference would be you get everyone out there on stage with you. Now, one of the questions you might be sitting there asking is, well, Steve, these group games sound great. They must be always really good. No, they're not. They're often really shit, you know, and not just like a little bit shit, like stinky, stuck to you shit, which is just this awful experience. Everyone's looking at themselves and you're just like, oof, did that really happen? It's like, yeah, that was a group game. That really happened. Now, the question might be, well, why are they shit? Well, because to me, the group game is a microcosm of what should really happen. It's a pressure cooker for a long form show where you can't really get away with just doing whatever you think is a good idea. You can't get away with sitting on the side waiting to come up with something clever or funny. You have to participate. You have to be in there, and you have to pay attention to what everyone else is doing in the group. And that is really fucking difficult to do. Really difficult to do. It's not at all easy. When I first went to Chicago, way back in 2006, hadn't been to I.O. before, went along, staying with a friend of mine, and he was like, go along and see some shows. So I went to see some shows, and I came back and I was so disappointed because the shows weren't great. It was pretty bad. And I was like, what's that all about? And he was like, oh, no, that's, it's kind of one of those things that this is kind of one of the things you discover is often a lot of the house team shows, a lot of the Harold shows, they're not that great. Because you end up in this trap often with group games and other things going on stage where people aren't 100% committed to what they're doing. So if we're kind of using that shit analogy a bit more, it's often like, if you're going for your walks at the moment in lockdown and you'll see like some dogs, not that I'm paying a lot of attention to dog shitting, but some dogs like privacy when they shit. That's true. But some dogs get kind of embarrassed. So if you're walking past a dog and it's doing a shit, it kind of gives you a look like, oh, this is weird. Like, I don't feel comfortable. I'd like some privacy. And now that look to me is the perfect look that you see in a long form troupe in a lot of group games. It's like, oh man, this is kind of weird. And well, this is bad for everyone. And we just don't want to be here. That is often what happens with a group game. But again, it's like you really want to do this stuff because it matters. If you can do this stuff well and connect with each other, you're going to create a better show. So very quickly, does that mean you should do that in all of your shows? Like, should that be for every audience? You should be doing group games, not necessarily because they are difficult to pull off. But if you are in a troupe, should that be a starting point? If you're in a house team, a troupe, an improv group, yes. Okay, I would say that's the place to start. Forget about scene work. You've done classes, you've done levels, you've got a base for that. But you really need to sink in as a group. You really need to understand each other. You can't just have one person taking the lead. It doesn't work in a group game. You've got to give and take. And if you work on that stuff, yeah, it can feel uncomfortable, but it forces you to do stuff which often it isn't necessarily your strong point when you're doing improv. And that will open things up for you. It won't just be all verbal stuff. There'll be an opportunity to do more physical stuff or more sounds things. So in summary, yeah, are group games fucking difficult to do? Yes. Are they often shit? Yes. But are they the pinnacle of improvisation? Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Proud through that.
I love that. That was such a great start to Rant Academy. I love that. I've scrolled so many messy notes. I love that. I have lots of questions already, and everybody else, of course, keep them coming. I love that. And Steve, that's so true. Like, technical difficulty is high for a group game, and they're super high. Often done so poorly that we can just decide to write them off completely. So I'm looking forward to interrogating that thought and jumping. Oh, that'll be great. Okay, next up, we have the wonderful Marcel with a very on-theme background, which I'm loving. Marcel Blanch Wilt is a stand-up comedian, an improviser, a writer, and a director. He's a graduate of Improv Theatre Sydney. What? And I.O. Chicago Improv Olympic. He performs in a two-prov team, the Newlyweds, alongside who, Marcel? Your wife, Elle, who's right there. While in Chicago, Marcel trained under such improv masters as the co-founder of I.O., Shana Halpin, and the great Bill Arnett. He has studied with the award-winning Dr. Brown in clowning, which I did not know till I read your bio, Marcel, and that is so cool. Marcel is also an accomplished stand-up comedian with 6 solo shows under his belt. He's performed stand-up in every capital city in Australia, as well as internationally in London, Wellington, and Chicago. In 2018, the Newlyweds won 2nd place in the It's Smackdown. They've enjoyed sold-out shows and were selected to perform at the New Zealand Improv Festival in 2019. Marcel has performed at so many festivals across Australia. He's directed brilliant shows, including Elle's wonderful show, Anastasia, that's also been at a whole bunch of festivals. And he's just really great. Guys, So just get excited for that. Tonight, we're going to have a rant with my favorite title of the whole series so far. The title of this rant is Never a Bad Time to Enter a Scene as an Old Grumpy New York Talent Agent. Marcel, over to you.
Oh, I'm excited about this. Thank you so much for having me, esteemed colleagues, esteemed guests, esteemed, etc. There's never a bad time to enter a scene as an old grumpy New York talent agent. This is true. I believe it. And by the end of this rant, you'll believe it too. You've met this archetype before, this stock character. They enter a scene with a fat cigar and a thick New York accent. You've probably played them, been in a scene with them. You might have seen me play them multiple times. They're especially popular in speedballs and montages and heralds. Typically, whatever happened in the scene before, the talent agent wants you to pitch them a movie, TV show, or Broadway play about it. They bust in, puffing their cigar, and say something like, "It's gold. Everyone is talking about this couple arguing in a kitchen for far too long. I need 3 potential movie ideas stat." The New York talent agent is a close cousin to the Hollywood producer or uptight studio executive. So closely related that they're virtually indistinguishable. They're a big shot that enters a scene and names what they're after. Hey, scene partner, I'm going to handball you some fun ideas to riff on. Let's talk about the character bench. Everyone has one. They're your bench of stock characters that come out regularly. Mine features a blokey guy, a Dickensian orphan, an uptight shop attendant, just to name a few. Sure, they might have different names or slightly different attitudes night to night, but they still have the same spirit. My goblin is sometimes a soothsayer, a hag, or a poltergeist, but ostensibly it's me on stage going like this. "Ah, no one can come into the cave tonight." It's been a while since I've improvised.
That was uncanny.
For a long time, well, hold on. I think some people are afraid of their character bench. I think they put a lot of pressure on themselves to always concoct brilliantly original characters, and it keeps them stuck to the back wall. I implore you to love your bench. Don't be embarrassed by them. Don't judge them so harshly because they keep wanting to come out to play. They want to come out because they're so much fun to play with. For a long time, I was nervous about the sorts of offers that I would bring on stage. I wanted to be funny, to be cool, but as I was reminded by Matt Higbee at I.O., you're not here because you're cool. Most of all, I wanted to be clever. I wanted desperately to be clever, but clever slows you down. Clever is this sticky paste that glues your feet to the ground and stops you doing anything. When clever is on stage, it's often obvious. It usually doesn't have much to back it up. Your fellow players often can't recognize your super clever idea, and you'll end up resenting them for it. Clever is an enemy to stupid, and I love stupid. I would let clever hold me back, or worse, I'd come on stage with half the enthusiasm. And an old grumpy New York talent agent can't come on half-assed. They have to march on and be clear about what they want. If they come on with half the energy, it would just be, hey kid, do you have any TV show ideas that might relate to that previous scene from before with the thing? I'm from New York, by the way. It's not great, you know. They're there to make the other character or characters shine. Great for a group scene, Steve, when you've got nothing else. So they need to be bold. They need to announce themselves. I would hold back familiar characters because I would be worried that they wouldn't be enough. But what makes them enough is the spirit and love that you give them. If you're feeling nervous, there's no better time to come on as the Hollywood hotshot. They command the scene. As the player, you had nothing, but as the cinematic bigwig, you've got all the power and you're just giving out beautiful gifts to your castmates. Some people might think that a bold, energetic character like that kicks off scenes in such an audacious manner are steamrollers, but I argue that they are anything but. They are gift givers. They give a central objective for a scene. They are a welcome break after a chaotic run. They are familiar, a clear premise. They are a cozy fire, that loving embrace of that vaguely Brooklynish accent, puffing a cigar while still talking at the same time. Your fellow player can recognize it and feel at home. To be the player opposite the talent agent is to be looked after. You'll find a pace together, throwing underarm softballs to the batter. I don't watch sport, but I think that analogy makes sense. If the ideas you pitch them are funny, great, you're hilarious. If they're bad, even better, the talent agent will offer up some snappy quip. Either way, you're golden. How many scenes can you play where you can get away with saying almost anything and still be the star, the next big thing? You've got it, kid. The talent agent is precisely that, someone who highlights talent. You are talent and you've been given your ticket to the big time. And this time, the big time is just really gentle offers. Like, can you give me a title for a movie about a cat that wants to be a dentist? Come on, kid, time is money. My 2 o'clock is a goblin who just refuses to leave me alone. In conclusion, call it hacky, call it lame, overdone, old hat, unoriginal, not clever, stupid. I don't care. I stopped caring and became a much better improviser because I was focusing on having fun. And even more importantly, making it fun for my scene partner. The old grumpy New York talent agent will always be there for you. When you've got nothing, he's got something. And he's going to tell you that you've got something. Everyone's got something. It's the old grumpy New York talent agent, and he wants to come out to play.
I love that so much. Everybody watching, can we sound off in the comments, please? I want to know one of your characters on the bench that you pull out all the time, because I will definitely play like a lost kid or a bitchy PTA mum if you give me half a chance. I want to know comments. I want to know, who are your bench characters? New York talent agent, old Jewish woman married to a man named Harold.
I'm going to say, like, improvising with Marcel means that if he does this or even this, it's like, I know exactly what I'm playing with. It's so much fun. Like,
oh, that's so nice. It's like beautiful shorthand. Yeah. Secretly smart, dumb sounding guy. Great. Precocious 12-year-old or surfer dude from Claire. Beck, misunderstood dad, confused about something. Hayden Wright, a doctor who barely graduated. I think it's, we'll get into it later, of course, with the Q&A, but just watching these as well, we get sick of our own bench of characters, or we tell ourselves they're boring because we're used to them, but audiences don't know who our bench are. There's so many times it's fresh for the audience. So I am very excited to talk some more about that, and also just about the state of talent agencies in general in New York, here. Demanding job. We've got to get into the specifics, but we have one more rant before we get into our Q&A, and I'm very excited about this one. I think it's going to be some really good, juicy food for thought. It is, of course, the wonderful Elle Stankiewicz. Elle is a regular performer with Improv Theatre Sydney and her very own improv duo, the Newlyweds. She has worked on the screen and stage, including with some of Australia's leading theatre companies, because she's a brilliant actress. That's not in her bio. I added that, but it's true. This work has seen her travel across the country and internationally, performing in classical and contemporary productions, including the State Theatre Company of South Australia's critically acclaimed Neighbourhood Watch, which is just so impressive. Every time I read the bios of the people every week, I'm like, God, I know some talented people. Elle has toured with Bell Shakespeare, if you don't mind, as part of the Players and as part of Poetry and Actions Touring Ensemble. She also appeared as Helena with Bell Shakespeare in their main stage production of A Midsummer Night's Dream, which is super, super cool. Eleanor's on-screen credits include Rake, as well as various commercial short films and online content. And she's also written and starred in her own one-woman show, Anastasia, which Marcel directed. The Players toured Australia to critical acclaim, winning awards in the process, Best Writing and the Perth Fringe Tour Ready Award, which is so cool. Tonight, Elle is going to rant on the topic, Stop Trying to Be Interesting. Whew.
Okay. It's a hot lineup to follow. So welcome to my rant titled Stop Trying to Be Interesting. Okay, so I have this intense fear of being boring, of not having anything to say. But this is also paired with a crippling sense of doing too much, being an imposter and taking up space that isn't mine. And it's all wrapped up in this desire to be interesting. Even right now, I'm worrying whether this is enough, whether I'm doing enough. Like, should I be standing up, doing a dance, putting on a funny voice, doing some object work? Too hot. Checking in with the chat, like making sure I haven't lost you all yet. And I've noticed over the years that this habit, this need, this compulsion to be or do or say something interesting is inherent in me making art. I see it in the acting world, the corporate world. Shout out to Steve, I'm a fellow corporate trainer, and now the world of improv. And I've struggled and wrestled with what to replace this compulsion with. And for the purpose of tonight, because I honestly could talk about this for hours, I have boiled it down to 3 main categories. Number 1, be okay with silence. Number 2, it's okay to have just one idea. Number 3, if you are interested, then you will be interesting to the audience. Folding a piece of paper can be mind-blowing. So, first up, be okay with silence. So there can be a great amount of choices in improv. And sometimes fear or anxiety can be very, very loud and result in a heightened energy in an ensemble or show with so many offers being thrown out onto the stage and no time to properly listen or like explore them. Instead, I encourage everyone to be okay with silence. Pre-show, my brain can be so full of my day, my life, my expectations of the show that the only way to slow myself down is to find silence. People think words are more interesting than the spaces between them, but I challenge that. Everyone is so desperate to talk, and so no one ends up listening. Challenge yourselves to start with a silent opener. Relish in some environment establishing work, like perfect making that cup of tea or sandwich, or create tension by finding silence paired with intense eye contact with your scene partner. And furthermore, silence on stage does not mean that the person on stage needs to be rescued. Learn to be okay with and trust your fellow players. Don't feel compelled to fill their beautiful silence with your 20 panicked ideas and wasted words. You know what? Fuck off with your shitty, desperate offer or your New York talent agent and a tender, silent scene. Look, silence can be both on stage and in the audience. A silent audience, as Bridie so astutely put it last week, and I think Kate mentioned it before as well, is a listening audience, an interested audience. A theatre in which you could hear a pin drop is an electric space, a magical space, a space where audience and performer are living moment to moment, not knowing what is going to happen next. Allow the silence to come into your play and enjoy the freedom it brings. Okay, next point. It's okay to have just one idea. No one is expecting you to have all the answers. All you need is a jumping off point. And I've seen performers who are so desperate to prove that they paid attention to the opening or the suggestions or have a plan to save a show or a scene that they come on so hot with too many ideas, it just confuses everybody. I recognize them because I've been them. This can sometimes look like a person who has a few cool ideas from the opening and like jams them all into their first offer. Hello, I'm Marie Antoinette and I run this spaceship, and Mum, what are you doing here? Instead of this being interesting, well, it's just a jumbled mess of ideas that gets spewed onto the stage. And this is not only creating a bigger challenge for yourself and your fellow players, it also means that you'll probably miss the joy of discovery, following the development of ideas along with the audience. And some of the best moments in improv I've experienced have been when the players on stage started with the most basic of ideas and allowed them to grow moment to moment with the audience along for the ride. Having a billion ideas isn't clever. And as Marcel mentioned, it being clever doesn't make you a better improviser. In fact, having all these ideas probably keeps you in your head and disengages you from what is actually happening on stage now. Remember, it's not the idea that is interesting, it's your character's response, the relationship you build as a result of it, or the surprises that happen along the road of what if spurred on by that idea, not the idea itself. Okay, finally, if you are interested, then you will be interesting. Now, I was given this piece of advice years ago. I wish I could remember who told me. I was pretty sure it was someone at drama school, but it's served me time and time again. As long as I care, as long as I'm invested or interested in what I'm doing, the audience will be too. I need to trust that. My performance is not just for me. If it was, I would stay in my room and perform to a wall, which, well, at the moment, I might be doing a lot of that. Instead, I perform to change the audience, to affect them in some way. And I cannot do this if I don't care. A lot of people know this. I'm not claiming to have discovered anything new, but for whatever reason, I just don't see this a lot. Players may have the best of intentions, but after 3 seconds of silence, open the floodgates again. So in those moments of panic, double down your interest in the simplest thing at hand. I personally love to center my play with object work, but it might be your breath or saying, I miss us. Thank you, Anna Rensenbrink. Anything as long as it gets you interested in what is happening then and there. As I said, I could go on about this all night, but I won't, out of fear of no longer being interesting. So in conclusion, just stop. Shut up and stop trying to be interesting and instead enjoy being interested one idea at a time. Thank you.
Thank you. That was great. I was so captivated, Elle. You were interesting. That was gorgeous. Oh, every week, feel like I'm getting this life coaching from my friends. One thing that I loved that you said just then, Elle, was that some of the most magic scenes you've ever witnessed in a theatre start from those really basic ideas. I think that's such a good thing to remind everyone. Sometimes we feel this pressure to have really smart, witty, absurd, never seen before, ingredients to start off our sketch. But when I think about it, the sketches that I refer to as a teacher, the sketches that I remember the most as an audience member, are usually the ones that start the most simply. So I love that. That was great. Well, thank you, three of you, for your beautiful rants. I just loved them all. And thanks everybody for the great comments in the chat. Some really great insights coming from all of you as well, which is great. Keep those questions coming. There's an interesting thought that just popped up in the chat. So I think we'll start backwards. We'll look at Elle's rant first and we'll work backwards. In the chat, a few people have been commenting on this idea that sometimes it can be hard to tell if your scene partner is okay and if they need your help or not. So I wondered, maybe Elle, you can kick us off, if you have any thoughts about, as you said, we don't always want to jump in and rescue our scene partners. They might not need rescuing, but how do we trust that they're okay? And how do we know when they're not and we need to help them?
I think there's a big difference between engaged silence and a silent call for help. It's something about the energy and the internal rhythm of that player. And you can also help your other players. If someone is out front looking into the audience or into the space and they're engaged physically, their eye line and their focus is engaged in their play, then I reckon it's safe to assume that they're doing something. Even if they're panicking internally, they might just make sandwich after sandwich after sandwich. That they're engaged in something. They've got some sort of activity going. And by leaving them there, you give them the opportunity to let that grow. Like perhaps they start to cry over making the sandwiches because they just keep making sandwiches, versus someone who's making sandwiches and who you can feel their body shift. Usually it's a body shift, or they might kind of look around the room, but kind of, if you're on the sidelines, look to the side. That tends to be more of that silent call for help. As a player as well, you can call in another character from the side of stage. Like if you like, my God, my team, we spoke about silence and trusting each other, and I've stepped on and I've started a scene silently, and now I am honestly panicking and I don't want to make a single sandwich more. Like literally, this is it. This is all the scene is just me making sandwiches. There's no build, there's no character here. It's just me and the peanut butter. You can call on another character if someone isn't. And so I think it's about how you jam, how you rehearse, how you play, whatever, you know, I know not everyone jams and rehearses, but trusting, like learning to trust and notice the difference. And it all folds back to listening, right? If you're on the sidelines, you're not just listening for the words, you're listening for body language, you're actively listening. You're listening for how is that player breathing? Have they started to breathe faster, you know, in a panicked way? It's all those little clues that you can pick up on if you're listening out for them. And then reflecting after play, you know, after a show being like, man, was I panicking? Holy shit, you left me out there for like 10 minutes. And then the other players can go, oh, okay, that's Elle's version of panicking. Is to look really serene and have gorgeous earrings. Thank you, Araya. You know, like that's because we all have different styles. That's my very short answer.
It was a wonderful detailed answer. I loved it. I think it is sometimes the panic sometimes is felt by the person on stage who might feel stranded. Sometimes the panic is felt by us on the sideline being like, oh, I'd better get out there and help them. And I, again, don't know who said it in these words, but I use it all the time when I teach. I was told once that you can't play the game until you know the rules of the game. So you've got to be really judicious with your support. One of the most sophisticated things you can do is deploy and hang back and just trust. And as a few people have mentioned in the comments here, you know, of course, that comes as a result of jamming with the same group as well. So you get to know those rhythms. And we'll talk later when we get to Steve's rant, but sometimes the challenges can be when you're playing with people that you don't know as well. If you find yourself in a group game or a scene when you don't have those shorthand communication tools. So we will get there, which is great. Got another question for Elle. Elle, what other behaviors do you see in scripted theatre that improvisers can avoid or learn from? That's from Anna.
Okay, yeah. So there's something called thinking on the line. So when you've got a script, the idea is that the thought you have, so in life, when we have a thought, we inspire the thought and then we speak it. You know, so the gap between having a thought and speaking is quite little. And I think that sometimes as actors, I do it myself, and I people that I coach or work with, I see it quite a lot. We want to like prove our homework and like play and like, so I'll like react and then I'll have to do the line. So I've essentially like doubled up the amount of work I have to do. And I think it's the same with offers, right? So we feel like one offer isn't enough, or just simply reacting isn't enough. So I can't just have an emotional reaction and that be enough. I've got to have that and then say something. Or if I've said something, then I need to do something else. You know, it's that doubling down. That's something that I think, that I think both parties can learn from each other.
I love that.
Yeah, and I think it's also a point of view. So what you know in a script, like you have two different brains. You have the actor brain and the character brain. And, you know, like 10% of the actor is always on your shoulder, and then 90% is the character. And the little 10% on your shoulder, I think Lynn Pierce taught me this. She's like, the little 10% on your shoulder is there like looking out for you, making sure that you're loud enough, making sure that the audience isn't just looking at your butt the whole time, making sure that, you know, you're at the right emotional beats for the like narrative storytelling. That's it. It's just there as a caretaker. It's not there to control it. And I think as a player as well on stage, like having that little 10% of technique or that little caretaker on your shoulder means that you kind of know you're looked after. It's like a little guardian angel. And so the rest of you is, Marcel's 10% is the New York talent agent. I love that. Right. Sorry. I've got the chat open and I'm loving it. Whereas that 90% is you invested, like really investing and becoming engaged in the scenario that you're creating as it happens, you know, so you're not like planning ahead, you're staying in that present moment. And that little caretaker is thinking about, you know, what could be next. And, oh, that's right, you said their name is Daryl before, so remember that that's Daryl, not suddenly like Greg. So yeah.
I love that. I think that's great. Sometimes we feel this pressure to so fully dive into a character that we're 100% the character. We're so committed. And I think that's really great to remember. No, we do need little actor / talent agent on our shoulders. I once fell off a stage because I wasn't concentrating. Like my 10% was not there that day. So it's very important just for your physical safety and your dignity as well.
And I think also audiences watch, when an audience is watching an improv show, not like any performance, but they're watching the improviser and the character. And what engages an audience, and, you know, especially you'll see it more in short form where there, you know, there's a clear game element, but it's like, how does the improviser, you know, how do they solve this challenge? So there is a clear, and I think sometimes the interesting thing with improv is making it obvious sometimes to an audience that it is improvised. Because often audiences that are fresh to improv don't realize it's improvised. And sometimes when the improviser shows through the character, that can help an audience.
That's a great way to put it. We shouldn't be so scared of that. That's actually really lovely. Anna's put a comment in here, which I love and I can totally relate to. I wonder if any of you relate to this. Fabulous concept, Elle. Thank you. Sometimes I've been 90% caretaker and 10% character, and it hasn't been fun. I've definitely felt that in shows before. Have any of you felt that? Where the balance is out? Yeah. And just, you get so stuck.
I feel like I'm white knuckled at the end of a show if I've been too much caretaker, like, and I get to the end of the show and I suddenly start to breathe for the first time, like that's when I know I've been, like, my balance is out. Like if I reach the end and like, oh God, that was like fucking hard work.
Yeah.
Because I've held on so tightly for whatever reason.
Probably because the caretaker part is also, you know, going, wait, let me get this straight. You have no script and haven't rehearsed and want to go out in front of people that you don't know and make an ass of yourself. It's trying to protect this. Elle, some beautiful concepts. I love approaching all of this stuff from your fantastic, rich theatrical background. There's been some great food for thought there. We're going to now talk about New York talent agents and how we're all going to make it in this town. But a lot of
not all of you.
He's a realist, people. He's a realist. Okay, we've got a bunch of questions about your character bench. Let's start with Brendan's question. When in a show is it better to play a bench character, or when is it better to bench the bench? That make sense to me? I love this question.
Yeah, I like that as well. Like when is it better to play a bench character? So I thought about this just in the moment, and I feel like what you get from the opening, what you get from the suggestion, what you get from whatever's happening that day, they're your on-field starting lineup. They're the players that are already on the field, whatever inspiration is happening in the moment. Your bench is literally the bench. Like they're there for you when inspiration is missing. Like you've come in with your really cool character that you thought of from the opening and is unique, and you don't quite recognize them, and you're excited to enjoy them. And then the next thing you're like, I got nothing. Shit, I can't even remember the opening. The opening feels like last week. What do I do? Well, I know that I've got my bench, and they're there going, put me in, coach. I'm ready. Which one of us do you want? And you go, all right, you'll do it. So I don't think there's any time that's right or wrong. I would say that probably the start of a show, it's surprising to see a bench character come out. But also when there's the job of going, all right, we've got this hoop that's on fire and someone needs to jump through it, you go, well, I know just the guy for that. It's New York talent agent. He'll love that, you know. So you can recognize scenarios that will beautifully fit people from your bench. We're doing.
I feel like I'd be like, "Hey, it's me. I've moved to the Big Smoke, and I desperately need a talent agent." And then your goblin would arrive.
Welcome to the big time, kid.
Sorry, Marcel. I didn't mean to cut you off.
No, it was beautifully timed. It was beautifully timed to get in the riff, Bridie. But yeah, let's say I'd say there's no right or wrong, but definitely check to see who's naturally on the field already before looking towards that bench.
Love that. Steve, who is one of your bench characters?
It would be posh, confused person. So so Lord, he's come out as Lord Wellington in the past, but certainly a variation on that.
I love
is a lot of fun to play.
Beautiful.
Thinking they know more than they actually do.
Wonderful. Properly British, Lord Wellington. I love that. Speaking of which, I must tell everybody that Steve is drinking a glass of tea, and it's a glass instead of a mug, because then he gets more tea, which is the most English thing I've ever heard. And
is it tempered glass though?
No, it's just normal glass. You can put boiling water in a normal glass.
He's so British that he doesn't feel the pain for like the benefit of the tea.
Oh yeah. So you want to put like half boiling water and then top it up.
Next week we're only going to be talking about tea and Rant Academy, and I wish for an hour. Elle, what's one of your bench characters that comes out sometimes?
I think emotionally unstable. I think, and I was thinking about this earlier in the chat, and I think it came from a note, have an emotional response. Yeah. And I loved that so much that whenever I'm like, well, I don't know what's happening, I'm just going to have the complete opposite emotional response to what I'm having at that point in time.
I love this idea of the bench, because I think I do get self-conscious sometimes about knowing that I've got default characters, but you've got this bench of characters who can support you, who are there for you, and probably we default to them because we're good at them, right? There's elements of those characters that we can perform really well, and we like to explore and discover new things. So it's nice to know that we've got them. We don't have to use them, but that we shouldn't be afraid to use them if we want. Anna's got a question here, which I think is great, really interesting. Marcel, another question for you. What's the difference between a bench character and a bad habit?
Yeah, this is a great question. I like this a lot. I think a bench character and a bad, I think probably that's the difference between having a crutch or having a shitty, not committing enough to it. Because I think you can turn a bad habit of oh my God, it's that character again. If that improviser is imbuing that character with love and spirit and energy, and that character comes alive, then that character should be a solid fit for the stage. I think it's a bad habit when you're not giving it that love. It's almost just like a walking corpse under the stage, and you look down at yourself and you go, oh, I'm the British butler again, and here we go. You're already in the scene, you're half asleep, and you go, oh shit, I'm British butler again. And for me, that's blokey guy of walking in and thinking that I got to give myself some affectation and just go, yeah, what's going on here? Oh, hello. And I'm like, oh, who's this guy? He's no one. But now I'm just in it. And so I would say if it's not done with love and enthusiasm, it's probably a bad habit, and you're falling asleep at the wheel. So it's going, all right, what's exciting you? If it's not exciting you, it's not exciting your cast, it's probably a bad habit. And you need to take a good hard look at yourself.
You do, because we shouldn't be bored on stage when we're improvising, but sometimes we are. It's, I was about to say death defying, dramatic much. Heroes. But no, it is scary what we're doing. We should, we're walking that wire, so we shouldn't be bored, but sometimes we kind of do slip into that state. Okie doke. There's some great comments coming through. Hayden, I feel personally attacked by Blokes Guy. Yeah.
A lot of blokes have their Blokes Guy.
I have Blokes Guy.
Yeah, I was like, I have Blokes Guy too. I have film noir detective, and I have Blokes Guy.
And we all have our version of Blokes Guy, I think. Okay, let's jump into some questions for Steve. We're going to start with one which is not about group games, but I just like this as a question from Hayden for Steve. Any improv tips we can transfer to the corporate or work world?
I think what Elle was saying, I think it always comes back to the basic, listening. And I think one of the best things that you can do in any meeting or any situation with people is play back to them what they just said to you. Mm-hmm. Demonstrate that you've listened to someone, basic kind of empathy stuff. And hey, that's a great improv tip. I think Bill Arnett said that. It's like, you're some way into a scene, you don't know what's going on in the scene, you then just describe exactly what you think is happening in the scene. It's a great way to kind of reset and just, are we on the same page of what's happening? Yeah. And I think that to me in everyday life in corporate land, I think is a practical way of actually applying listening.
I love that. It also ties in, this listening idea ties in with what Elle said as well about you will be interesting if you're interested, which I love, but it's also, so much of what we've covered in the last few weeks does, bridge improv advice and life advice more generally. Being interested is an amazing tool. Like that's what people are told when you're going to a party and you don't know anyone there. Ask questions, be interested, like all of those things. They're just key human tools, but as soon as we get nervous, we can forget them. So it's really important. We have to remind ourselves all the time.
You're right. As soon as we get nervous, we can forget them. Yeah. I hear what you're saying.
Top of the class. This was actually a test. And Elle and Steve, you have to leave now.
I knew there was going to be a time.
Steve, here's a question from Kale Bain. He comes every week. I don't know who he is, but cute. All right, for Kimmens.
Nice knees.
We've got a question here, which I really like. I want to know your thoughts. You talked a lot about how group games are brilliant for bringing an ensemble together to get them on the same page, right? So important. They teach us so many good techniques in that regard. Are group games and Harold in general are they for audiences who aren't necessarily improv audiences? They're important for ensembles, agree, but are they important for audiences?
So I would say that I think there's a fundamental challenge with improv, which is often the people who are having the most fun at a performance are the performers, not the audience. And often improvisation is more for the performers than the audience. And that's why you get people wanting to go to school to learn to do improv, because it's like, wow, those people are having so much fun. I want to learn how to do that. And to me, you see this problem, and I've been in lots of these conversations where people are like, people aren't coming to see our show. It's something wrong with them. Those people have their own time and their own lives and their own money. Wow, they're fundamentally flawed. And it's like, well, actually, have you put on a product that's going to appeal to them? So I think to answer Cal's question, I think the challenge with Harold and group games is that they can be a really difficult way to get into improv as a fresh-faced audience person. And they can also be very difficult to do well. So it's kind of two difficulty levels of what's happening. And I think that's why, to me, things like short form and like structured long form work really well, because you're giving an audience a way in to understand what's happening. And so that they're part of what's going on. It's not that it's being done to them. They're part of the process, which makes it a special activity, a special event that they want to come back to.
Oh,
my way in on Harold's as well.
Yeah, please do jump in.
The big thing as well with Harold's, whether they're for the classroom or whether they're for the stage, like being in Chicago, and I hate to be like, I've been to Chicago, but also I've been to Chicago because it was great. It's part of me. It was seeing Harold shows that you wouldn't recognize were Harold shows. Like, and even as a student, you're like, oh, hold on a second, that was a Harold. And I think people who know the moves get too caught up going, oh, I see what they're doing, and like, do we need this? But like when you see really fun players that are making it their own, oh, it is a delight to watch a Harold that you can't see the moves.
I think as well, like it comes down to, why are you performing? Like, are you performing because it's fun for yourself, or are you performing because you want to be part of the collective of what it is to be the relationship between a performer and an audience? Like, a performer doesn't exist as a performer unless they have the audience there. And so unless you need something from them, they're never going to need something from you in return. Like, it's that you want them to lean forward, like minimum 20%, that you need them to do 20% of the work. So like, if you're doing 100% of the work in the show, like, again, just perform to a wall, like, or jam with your mates, like, which can be so much fun, but to make it a show, I reckon you have to need the audience. And I've also been to Chicago.
Yeah, so have I.
I haven't, and that's why I moderate, and I don't. One day. My secret is out. I'm a hack. I love that. I love that. And I love the audience. And I love being in an audience. And I hate being in a show where I'm like, well, looks like you're having a great time with your personal jokes that you're doing on stage. I'm glad I gave up my $20 and an hour and a half for this. Like, include me. I didn't, like, I'm part of this. So I love that you're just kind of touched on that. That's so important for us to remember. And good God, I can't wait till we can do shows again, just as a separate thought.
and can I add one other thing to that, which
Please.
is, I also think there's something subtly different between, that doesn't mean necessarily doing safe improv, because I think safe gets back to Marcel and Elle's points, which is kind of Marcel's point of, you bring the bench character out because it's like, oh, this works. I know this works. And, it kind of pulls to Elle's point of, I'm not that interested. I'm not that engaged. Like, audiences, even if they're not improv audiences can feel when you are on the edge. And that's what makes it exciting, because you're watching the improviser, the performer, tightrope walk. And that's what keeps people engaged and excited and interested in the show. When you see people are just going through the motions of improv, the audiences aren't engaged. Like, audiences can feel that. They know when you're not taking risk. They know when you're not on the edge of failure.
I like to think of improv as like the guidelines. So improv is the playground, but you watch any number of kids run onto a playground, they're going to be playing in such entirely different ways. The playground itself is there to support the play. It's not there to stop the play. It's not there to tell you, just because this is shaped like a wheel, that this is a pirate, and it looks like it could be in a pirate ship, that this has to be in a pirate ship. It's just there.
But it could be in a pirate ship.
But it absolutely could be in a pirate ship, Marcel. Just
saying.
Even though we're in separate rooms, we will be still married at the end of this. It's there to begin. It's not there to be everything. And I don't want to see an improv show to see just improv. I want to see the things that people do with what improv gives you. Like, it gives you so much. So why would you hold on to it and do just pure improv?
I love that. It's that little magic, that X factor, and audiences love it. They might not be able to name what it is. They might not have the technical language. They might never have seen improv before, but audiences are smart, and they know when they see that special extra bit of magic, when you're right, when you use the play equipment in an interesting new way. You guys, you inspire me. So many beautiful thoughts rattling through my head. I loved it. We've got plenty more questions, but we are out of time. I loved that. We are out of time, but there's one question. We've got a bunch more questions. I'm just going to ask one. Can we stick around for one more question? Because I think it'll be a nice one to finish on. The question is, do you remember a time when you saw an improviser really in the zone? What is the reverse of the scared dog shitting look? That's from Hayden. I would love to finish tonight by just a moment that either you yourself have felt incredibly in the zone, or as an audience member or ensemble member, you've watched someone and been like, yes, that's it. If any spring to mind.
I suppose the first one comes to mind is I think the start of have you guys heard of this little indie improv duo called the Bear Pack? I think that's what they're called. Might be the Wolf Dudes. I can't remember.
Haven't been to Chicago.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. But what I love, because going back to that theme of silent scenes and having that trust in your fellow players, is like watching those opening moments. And like, I remember one where I believe it was Steen just going down corridor after corridor, hallway after hallway, upstairs, up a spiral staircase, through multiple doors, and having that willingness to just keep that game going and keep that discovery going, and just have the other player, Carlo, I believe that's what the combination of players was on that night. I believe just be watching it and enjoying it is great. And it's the same thing that me and Eleanor sort of has stolen for the newlyweds, is to go, hey, I'm going to start, and it's okay if I'm silent for 2 minutes, because it's going to be engaging as heck. So Yeah.
I love that. What a great example. Elle, do you have one that springs to mind?
Yeah, I have one from when I was like, I don't know, when Sandpit was at the Chippo, and Belle Anderson Hunt and Josh McGee did a scene together. And I don't remember how it started, but like I think Belle was like, Josh was like setting out a picnic or something, and then Belle came on as like a police officer, like moving him on. And then it became this like beautiful short film. And then like someone on the desk started like playing music, and it became completely underscored, and they started walking and like picking flowers, and it was just like this whole thing. And it went on for like, I don't know, it could have went on for like 10 minutes. I don't know, like it was just beautiful. It was just glorious. And just not only because I don't know if anyone here has seen Belle improvise, she kind of always has, it's no surprise she went to clown school, because she kind of has that, like, she tells you when she's like, I don't know what I'm doing. So she kind of came on as the police officer and was like, well, I guess this is whatever this is what I am now. And then Josh being able to like pick up on that and just be like, yep, I inherently am just going to play with you, and just going moment to moment. And I'm pretty sure I cried. Like, it was so beautiful. I don't know how it ended. I just remember just them both like just walking, you know. It was just stunning. And that was from like years ago, but it's stuck in my mind.
They do those ones, don't they? They amazing. What about you, Steve?
I would. So a performer who always jumps out to me is Rama Nicholas down in Melbourne, and always does amazing stuff. And there was this one, it was this 52-hour soap opera, and I think it was right towards the end, and it was her and Sarah, and I can't remember Sarah's surname, so Anna might be able to help me. Kinsella. Oh, boom, Baines on it. So Sarah Kinsella, and you know, these characters have been built up over 50 hours of the show. And I think Rama's character had Sarah in this neck hold, and she had a broken bottle against her throat. And Sarah chose to like fall onto the bottle and kill herself. And it was just this gasp in the audience. And also all the players are shocked. That thing of watch the improviser, watch the character, everyone's shocked, because it's like, shit, like we've just been like doing this for 50 hours and this character was key. And now, you know, and Sarah just made the call. It was like, this is where you're going to have more fun in the playground. It's like me dying. That's going to throw shit up in the air. What's going to happen next? And it was just like that, playing in the moment. It's not like thinking stuff through too much. It's like, no, this is going to be fun.
Yeah. And, you know, throwing that up in the air, like, is a massive gift to everyone you're playing with. I love that you said at the start in your rant about, you know, like, it's the greatest gift is like that shared improv experience. Marcel, you also spoke about the notion of like gifts. They're not the people that come in with those big bench bold characters. They're not steamrollers, they're gift givers. It's such a nice way to think about it, you know.
Thanks for listening, Bridie. I really appreciate that.
Yeah, there's so many beautiful insights from the three of you tonight. One of my favorite moments of seeing an improviser in the zone was my dear friend Agia. I think this is probably about 10 years ago, who was endowed as a beaver in a scene and just absolutely just was like, yep, sure, that's what I am. And for the rest of the show was just getting chairs from the audience and building a dam on stage, and was not like really interacting with anything else, like the odd little emotional offer, but it was just so beautiful and so committed. I loved it. Before we go, I would like to just quickly see what you guys would like to plug. Elle and Marcel, you have a podcast.
We do. We have a podcast with a fellow player Araya.
And star of the chat.
And star of the chat tonight. Oh my God,
absolutely.
Bring it home. Yeah, Marcel's just put it in the chat. So we need help pod. You can find us on Instagram. We got a bunch of fun guests, a lot of
including Bridie herself.
Bridie herself. Yeah, it's
a fun show.
It's us.
I also want to plug every second Sunday is this super secret It's online open mic, which has been really fun. Like some might think, oh, the idea of doing open mic, awful. The idea of doing an online open mic, even worse. Yuck, what's that taste in my mouth? But the vibe's been really nice, and I do my best to make it a social experience and a really nice vibe. If you want to,
I did it one time. Sorry, Marcel, I talked over you. That wasn't group game mentality. But I did it the other night, and so character comedy can be fun as well. It doesn't have to be pure stand-up. It's so supportive. Shane Porter was on that night as well.
Shane's supporter.
Again, great supporter.
So come along to that if you want something to do every second Sunday. I do hear that Beck Melrose might be on the next one. So
huge. What to get? Steve, do you have anything you'd like to plug?
I just like to plug Tom Cardy's videos. So, and you can access them anywhere on social media. They're really good. Like they're very funny and off the wall and everything. And they're just really good. And I would highly recommend, there's a particular Dolly Parton video with a certain Bridie in it as well, which is well worth to watch. So, share them with your friends because they're really funny, and you'll look like you're funny as well.
Love that. And I have something I would like to plug, which is the final installment of Rant Academy, the final installment for what I'm going to loosely refer to as season 1. So we're going to take a break after next week, but next week we've got another international guest. Most likely she's checking her timetable, but it looks like it's going to happen. Also, we have faculty member Eden Lacey and one of my favorite comedians, Michael Heng. So it's going to be a great show to round out the season. But thank you again for tuning in, everybody. And thank you, Elle, Marcel, and Steve, for your wonderful rants.
And thank you to the
thanks,
folks in the chat, and thanks to Bridie.
Pleasure, treasure. We'll see you all next week. Stay safe, everybody.
Bye.
Bye.